Is a big problem sneaking up on the Dodgers? Is a good problem to have sneaking up on the Dodgers? Today, I welcome my friend Cody Snavely of Dodgers Beat of the Bleed Lows podcast, and we talk about a whole bunch of Dodgers pitching. There's a whole bunch of players that are on their way back from injury. They still have some players here pitching, performing, doing well. How does all of it shake out? What happens by the time the bell rings on the regular season and heads into October? There's a whole bunch of pitching conversation today on another edition of the All Dodgers podcast. First, my name is Clint Pasillas. Find me as RealFRG at RealFRG on the Twitter, X on the Instagram. I'm a longtime baseball writer, sports editor. I cover the Dodgers here on the internet for a long time. Talk about your Dodgers here on my All Dodgers YouTube channel. Please consider giving it a subscribe. It's something that's completely free. Trying to reach that elusive 7,000 subscriber mark. Relatively new channel, so if you can help us get to the 7,000 sub mark, that'd be really cool. And again, it's free. Hit that thumbs up. I would do it for you if I could do it, but I don't know if you have a channel, so you guys got to let me know in the comments below if you want me to follow you. Maybe I'll do that. But before we get into the action, I have to tell you about one more thing. BetOnline. It's your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs going on right now this season. Every stat, every matchup, even live odds while the games are being played can be found on BetOnline. When the game's over, head on over to one of their online casinos. If you're able to do that in your area, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of the 150 slot games they have on the BetOnline app. Head to the website today. Get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Just believe, like the podcast network we're part of. You get 50% a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's pretty cool. BetOnline. The game starts here. Now, as we pass the 50 games into the season mark, which is how you explain it, the Dodgers find themselves in an interesting and perhaps very enviable spot when it comes to the pitching side of things. The staff, the Dodgers, the club boasts one of the best pitching staffs in baseball right now by ERA. They're doing it with a bunch of their big weapons on the injured list. Evan Phillips, Joe Kelly, Bobby Miller, Kyle Hurt, Brusdar Graterol, Dustin May, Clayton Kershaw, throwing Ryan Brazier if you're nasty on there. Some of those guys, though, however, are on the mend. They're getting healthy and they're nearing a return, which creates an ugly or enviable, again, roster crunch for this team. So, again, they find themselves in this spot. They're the talk of the league. They could be the talk of the town. They are good. This team is good. This pitching staff is good, and it's primed to get even better. Where things get tricky is, where do you fit in all that talent? So I brought some talent in here to talk about this. We bring in friend of the show, one of the great voices of the Bleed Lows podcast, contributing writer over at DodgerBeat.com. You see it on the shirt there, Mr. Cody Snavely. What is going on? Cody Canelo in the house. Appreciate you taking some time today, bud.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. We've collaborated in the past, and it's always good to, to brand out, reach out, and collaborate with all the other Dodgers content creators. And honestly, you're one of the best to do it, so I'm honored to be joining you on your show.
Appreciate that. Check is in the mail for the kind words. So again, we already had a lot of setup, a lot of preface there. Where do the Dodgers fit all this talent that's coming back? It's a real blanket statement because there's a lot of talk about it and then step back and reset the playing field again because there's different people coming back at different times. So I'll leave you that. Where do they fit all this talent that's coming back? How does it work?
I think, it's a good problem to have, and that's something that me and you kind of discussed in how we were going to plan this episode out, is the Dodgers just have too much pitching to the point where some of these roster spots, it's going to come down once everybody is healthy, and that's a big if. They're going to have to, someone's going to be the odd man out. Someone's going to be getting optioned down, to the minor leagues. I mean, hell, we just saw James Outman cut the boilet with Jason Hayward being activated. So the starting rotation is actually even deeper than probably you could say the position player pool. And, just looking at, pretty much with the guys that we know are coming back and then the guys that we currently have, this is the first time this year where we really have a full 5-man rotation. Arguably could be a 6-man rotation with some guys that are either in the minor leagues that have been coming up and down, like a Landon Knack, or, our unofficial sixth man in the bullpen in Ryan Yarbrough, who
Yeah.
likes to eat a lot of those innings. So, and then, we obviously today before the game on Tuesday, we got the news that Bobby Miller is about to start his rehab start, looking to get around 2 to 3 starts down there in the minor leagues. And then once he comes back, you're looking at potentially an even deeper rotation. And Dave Roberts was asked extensively, hey, like, what is your guys' plan? Is a 6-man rotation in the future? Is somebody like getting, maybe IL'd, or maybe do they try to limit somebody's innings? But, it's a good thing that the Dodgers have. And it's great that compared to last season, it's something that I wrote about recently on Dodgers Beat. And it's funny that we're talking about it right now, but it's something that I've been looking at for the past couple of weeks. And it's because 2023 was very uncharacteristic for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
When I think of Dodgers baseball, I think of the first thing that comes to my head is elite starting pitching.
Yep.
And last year, while there were some, bright spots with, Bobby Miller, making his debut and being a corner piece of that rotation, Clayton Kershaw kind of turning back the clock, having a really good year until the end where, his shoulder ended up, giving out.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers terms, in ERA plus, they were, almost bottom half of the league, which was the first time that's happened in almost 15 years. And it really showed. It really showed in October where, this team still won like 100 games last year, and their rotation was pretty much falling apart. And that's not even getting into, Kershaw falling apart at the end, Julio Urias having his whole debacle, relying on, multiple rookie pitchers in, Emmett Sheehan and Bobby Miller. The writing was kind of on the walls for, Dodger fans like myself, where we rolled into October, clearly the favorites, but I still saw some issues, and that ended up being the Achilles heel for the, the Dodgers in that, faithful 3 games in October that they played. This year, it's a completely different story, though. So they do have options, though.
Yeah, it's very nice. I think both you and I watch every year. Unfortunately, too early, too often, or much too early, regularly of late over the last few years. But we watch very intently that post game, that postseason post-mortem with Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes. And one of the things they did talk about, they were real open with the fact that, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to get some pitching. We like a lot of the relievers we already have. We're going to bring some of them back. And I think they did beyond a phenomenal job in creating right now it's tied for as of the time we're recording, tied for the best ERA in the National League, just a few, ticks behind the Yankees, I think, have the number 1 ERA. For some reason, Boston's up in there, if I'm not mistaken. It's very, very odd that the AL East is doing as well as they are. But the Dodgers have been very, very good and kind of piecemealing it together with some of the guys. We know we've seen like 11 different relievers somehow over the last couple of weeks. Those aren't going to be the guys. We know those aren't the worry spots when it comes to somebody like Bobby Miller coming back, Clayton Kershaw coming back. But there's a lot of talent that's there right now, that's thriving, that's doing well. But there's going to be a bunch of dudes. In fact, there's 8 guys that are expecting big league jobs by the time they come back and get healthy. We'll kind of run through them real quick here. You mentioned Bobby Miller again already, but throws the 3-inning sim. He's going on a rehab, probably 2 or 3 game rehab assignments, so you should get him back early in the month of June. Evan Phillips is nearing a rehab assignment. Joe Kelly's throwing a baseball. Ryan Brazier appears to be further along than we anticipated at this point in time, because they made it seem like his whole leg was going to fall off after that calf strain. Bruce Dark Gratterall apparently now throwing at 120 feet the last couple of days. Clayton Kershaw's throwing off a mound, and I'm really liking, he's doing his usual like off day routine. He's throwing in the outfield, he's getting his running in. That's the shit that gets me excited. Dustin May posts the video today throwing his first bullpen. A couple guys that are sort of in that limbo. Kyle Hurt, we haven't heard much about him. We know Emmett Sheehan and Tony Gonsolin, those guys are done for the season. But again, all of those guys are coming back at some point in time, very soon, some of them, and they expect to be on this pitching staff in some way. I like one of the things you said there. It kind of lends itself to the unfortunate part of baseball. Baseball will have a way of answering these questions for you, and we hope that's not the situation. We've seen some of these guys shoving, like the unexpected rise of Gavin Stone, Michael Grove. Like, those are two guys you flash back 2 months from now. It's like, yeah, they'll be here for a little bit and they could be optioned down. Now they're stuck. These guys are here. Is there a world, in your opinion, is there a world where Gavin Stone isn't in the starting rotation, Michael Grove is not somehow a bridge to the ninth inning?
I mean, I would hope it's not a world that I'm in. And I say it just because, Gavin Stone is a guy, when he got called up last year, rose through the minor leagues extremely fast, probably faster than he himself even anticipated. And I feel like he did get a little bit of a reality check getting, brought up to the major leagues and not working out, having an ERA, I believe over like 7
9
in his, yeah, it was high. I didn't realize, I forgot it was that high, but it didn't work out. And a lot of the things were getting hit, especially his fastball. And his changeup still had good, advanced numbers on it. But if you don't have a good fastball at this level, these major league hitters can just sit and, hold on your changeup and then just wait for your fastball when you're behind in the count. This year, complete 180 for him. David Vassay said extensively that this guy went into the offseason with a major focus on trying to rebrand himself. He mentioned a foot or toe injury that was kind of lingering with him last season that he kind of corrected this year. And kind of in his past like 6 starts, we're starting to see, a pitcher's pitcher, because this is a guy, and credit for the Dodgers rotation as well, because they do have the ability to get strikeouts. But I just feel like this year, compared to years prior or other teams in baseball, where they would rather just get guys out, rather attack the account and get, ground balls, fly outs, and then focus on strikeouts. And they're being very efficient. And Gavin Stone is one of those guys that is extremely efficient. When I look at him working on the mound, he will allow them to put the ball in play to get easy outs. He's getting a lot of weak contact, and it's going really good for him. And especially that start against the Atlanta Braves, where he really held his own against. I know they're slumping right now. They're second place in the NL East. The world's falling apart in Atlanta, but that's still a really good baseball team. And I don't care what their the stats in the back of their card say right now. So I think he's earned his spot. I think he's earned to be a mainstay in the rotation. I think it would be a disservice to him to send him down to the minor leagues, because what do you want him to do? If he's fully healthy, do you just want him to dominate quadruple A? Unfortunately, that's not a part here in Major League Baseball. So I think the Dodgers are going to have to get creative. I think a lot of fans are not going to like it, but I think they're going to start doing, I've made jokes about it before, but they're going to start doing the Lakers approach. They're going to start doing load management with some of these starting pitchers. And it's a disservice to me as well as a fan, because one of the guys I think they're inevitably going to do it to is Tyler Glasnow. He has a career injury-riddled history.
Yep.
He pitched his career high in innings last year, only 120 innings pitched. And he's already, I believe, 1 or 2 in the National League in innings pitched already this season. So even if he's fully healthy, the Dodgers want this guy available in October. So could you see the Dodgers possibly, placing maybe him on an IL stint? Yoshi Yamamoto, he's another guy. The MLB season's a lot longer than it is in Japan. The Dodgers may want to put him on a little bit of an extended break as well. And it gets hard to do it because you don't want to break these guys' rhythm, because I feel like the Dodgers rotation right now is the best it's been in years. And looking back all the way to April 21st, they're 21-6 in that span. That's, I believe, the second best record in baseball underneath the Philadelphia Phillies. The team ERA is 2.18, which is one of the best in baseball. And they were just in that stretch of 22 straight games with allowing 4 runs or fewer, which is just astonishing to read.
In this day and age, the
big stat for me is that this entire season is that when the Dodgers have their starting pitching go at least 6 or more innings, they're 22-3 in those games. And that goes against that old adage where I always believed it, is that starting pitching wins ball games, whether it's in the regular season or when it's in October. And I feel like that's where even Andrew Freeman kind of got away from. And even in his press conference, you brought it up in this episode where he mentioned a reporter asked, well, is there starters that go deep into games? And he said himself that he didn't really see that. But I feel like the Dodgers kind of took a complete opposite approach, because now they're on pace to have their starters throw more innings than they did last year. They're 9th in starting pitching inning pitch this year at 261. So I mean, I feel like that's the best way to go. And these guys are healthy. They have a lot of arms available. It helps the bullpen, but I hope Gavin Stone stays. But I just think they're going to be doing some maneuvering, typical Dodgers,
Yeah.
tomfoolery, shifting the entire rotation, having guys come in and eat innings when needed, and then once October comes, I mean, there's going to be some cuts somewhere.
Yeah, there's gonna have to be some tough questions, tough conversations, like we just saw with James Outman, who admittedly, I mean, it was a tough question or a tough conversation just because of what he meant to this team last year, but it was outside of CT3 the most obvious conversation to have is like, hey bro, you got to go back down, you kind of got to get your feet back under you a little bit. Let's hammer in more on the 6-man rotation, because there's a reality where we could be looking at a 7-man rotation. When Bobby Miller's back, he's going to find his way in there. They're going to, stretch, like you're saying, kind of play a little bit of, I guess, musical pitchers or whatever. They will find their way to keep Yoshi Yamamoto on his 6-day, 7-day routine. I would agree with you. I agree with the team more so with the idea that Glasnow probably should be tapered back a little bit. As fun as it is to see these guys, pitching 6, 7, 8 innings right now, it doesn't work as well in this modern era. We care more about October. You don't want to see the wheels fall off like, a la 2021 season where everything just really, really came apart. But, at some point in time, also, there could be a Clayton Kershaw in the mix. That's where I say like the 7-man rotation. How do you want to see let's just settle on a 6-man rotation? How do you, as a fan, as somebody who also covers this team, how would you want to see them sort of run with the 6-man rotation? And keeping in mind, there's also a lot of dudes in the bullpen that if you are 6-man rotationing it and one of those guys in the bullpen is Ryan Yarbrough, you're leaving yourself a short bullpen. Could be very stacked, but feels like a short bullpen. How do you navigate through that?
I think a 6-man rotation is not just only the best option for the Dodgers right now. I think it's the best option for baseball moving forward. I think we're going to start seeing, especially when the next CBA comes up in the next couple years, especially with all the arm injuries that we're seeing in baseball right now. If teams don't want to change their philosophy, then they're going to have to change their approach and how many pitchers are on their roster. And I think the next step to that, I'm looking in the future right now, and I believe that they will start adding the rosters increase to add more pitchers to give either more length or more options. And the 6-man rotation would make sense for that. And then maybe add another arm for the bullpen as well. But right now, as the Dodgers roster is currently constructed, you look at the amount of starting pitchers that they have, a 6-man rotation just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah,
because the Dodgers have the luxury not many other teams in all of baseball have, and that's that they already have almost a 10-game lead over the second place Padres, who are also in playoff contention, and they have the ability to just work at a pace that they want. They don't have to rush anybody back. Kershaw, if they want to hold off all the way into August, so be it. They could do that if they really wanted to. In years past, some of these guys they were depending on to come back to fill in the rotation. Now, just due to what they did in the offseason, credit to Andrew Friedman for, being true to his word. He gave the Dodgers, the best step that they've had in probably a couple of years, and it's showing off right now. So I would say 6-man rotation is the best way to go. If you're not going to IL some of these guys, you're going to start seeing some, maybe some rotations between the bullpen. It really just depends on how some of these guys bounce back from their injuries. We don't know how Bobby Miller's going to look. He gave up a home run to Chris Taylor today. I don't know what I'm expecting now.
That's immediate option to AAA right there.
So it's really, and then even Kershaw, and I'm the biggest Kershaw fan. He was my favorite player. Still is continuously my favorite player. But if he isn't 100%, he will be the first one to let you know. And there is a possibility that maybe he's an afterthought come October, even for a guy as historic career he had, especially for this franchise. It is definitely an option that's on the table. So I think they should go a 6-man rotation. I'm not sure if they will, just because even Dave Roberts' response to it today, there's, you get some added benefits, but then you lose some arms in the bullpen. And you've already mentioned there's some arms that are in that bullpen right now that deserve spots. I know everyone wants to hate on Michael Grove, but he's made huge strides, so far the past, month of the season. So, and then we also have, Evan Phillips coming back, Ryan Brazier coming back, Joe Kelly's potentially coming back. These are arms, and Brusdar Gratterall, he had an ERA under 2 last year, almost under 1 at like
Yeah, near one.
1.24, something around that. So that's a guy, if he's added to the bullpen, he definitely deserves a spot. So the Dodgers have a pitching staff of like 40 arms right now, and they only have 13 or 14 available spots. So when I'm thinking about it, and I'm, looking forward to the next month or two, and that's the trade deadline. Maybe the Dodgers make a subtraction from their pool of depth, maybe trading away a mainstay in the rotation. Maybe somebody like a Landon is thrown into the trade block. Maybe even a James Paxton if a fringe playoff team needs an innings eater. We've seen it happen before. And if the Dodgers value something else besides, pitching, we've seen there's obviously still questions about Mookie Betts being a shortstop. There's some questions in the bottom of the Dodgers lineup. I would say those are the two biggest issues right now, not the starting pitching. So I've been kind of preaching it, and I've been putting it in there in my articles and my talking points on the Bleed Low podcast. And that's just saying the Dodgers may make a subtraction with an addition of something else that they really need. So someone's going to be biting the bullet, and I don't know who it's going to be yet.
No, that's a really good point. I hadn't really considered it at this point of the season yet, but it is the time to really start looking forward to that trade deadline. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, do you think they could be active at the trade deadline? I was thinking more so in the addition route, but I figured that's really a dead conversation because most of the trades are already happening from the injured list. But the idea of using some of those pieces, maybe Paxton at some point becomes one of the more obvious guys. Maybe Ryan Yarbrough. Thank you for the first few months. That was your job to get us through those first few months, but it's very clear, it's painfully obvious that he really would not have a role in a postseason pitching rotation or a pitching staff at this point in time, unless things really, really go sideways for this team. So maybe you do use some of those pieces to either help in center field in the long term, especially if Andy Pages keeps kind of staying on the strikeout and say walking back to the bench a little bit more often than he was in the first few weeks of his great MLB career, we'll call it. Or of course we know the team needs some help at second base, third base if Muncie's going to be out for a while. So I like that idea, and that sounds like something we could talk about in about a month or two from now. So luckily we got your number here, or I got your DM, so we can talk more about it then. A couple other points I wanted to just touch on real quick that you mentioned. I like the idea of the roster. I fully agree that the next CBA or something even sooner will add another spot to the roster, because it only helps players who are looking for jobs. It adds another opportunity out there. I mean, I'm kind of annoyed at the fact that right now, this team has already had a dead roster spot with Chris Taylor. Very clearly, they don't need 13 position players. They would rather have 14 pitchers. And then we kind of alleviate some of this issue we're talking about here with this good problem to have. But the other thing, I did want to ask you about Kershaw. You kind of touched on the Kersh situation there. For you, admitted, self-appointed or self-admitting Kershaw fan and all that. This is somebody you grow up watching. This is a hero in your Dodger world. What are your personal expectations for Kershaw? Like peeling back the fandom. This is a guy who had a major shoulder operation. What are the put some reality on it? What do you think Kershaw looks like if he comes back this year?
It's hard because at the end of the day, I really want him to perform well. I want him to get a spot in the rotation, and I want him to have his Cinderella song and end up getting the Dodgers a World Series this season. And then I have to temper it back a little bit because I have to be realistic. This guy's in his mid to late 30s, had his first ever major surgery, and it was on his throwing shoulder, which is a huge issue that could derail anybody's career at no matter what age you are. He had a similar surgery to Brandon Woodruff, and Woodruff's out the entire season, and he's not even going to be seen. And Kershaw, even when he announced it and stated that he was going to be back midsummer, very vague, I was kind of on the assumption that maybe that's where he would sign a 2-year deal. He ended up kind of doing that with the 1 year with the player option.
The 1-1.
But I think he's going to be good. And I think it goes back to what you already mentioned, where he's already in his throwing program that he would do any other season. It seems like he's very comfortable in his bullpens right now. It seems like everything feels great. And I feel like it's probably more of a relief that he had that surgery, because how many injuries has Kershaw had where he opted not to get surgery?
Yeah.
When you don't get the surgery, you're just dealing with the lingering effects of those injuries, whether it's the back, the shoulder, the arm, that's stuff that's going to start wearing on you, especially as you get older. And I think it finally reached its breaking point last season, and he opted to go under the knife. So my expectations for him are actually very optimistic. I think he will be valuable to this Dodgers club whenever he returns, whether it's late July, early August. I think he showed that last year. He had a 2.46 ERA. He was very good in those first, like 6 months of the season. Once he had the shoulder issues, that's when we saw the velocity drop. And that's going to be the first thing that I look at. And I'm not saying Kershaw's when he was 26 years old, dotting 95, 96 miles per hour. But if he can get up to, to 92, 93, not 89 and 90 miles per hour, we may have a really good run with Kershaw, especially the idea of a fully rested Kershaw with a fresh arm going into October. We saw it once before in 2020 where he was very vital in that postseason run.
Yeah.
He is definitely going to be a major factor. And the Dodgers envision that as well, that they wouldn't have brought this guy back if they didn't envision him. He wouldn't have even came back if he didn't think he was going to be at the top of his game for this team right now, because with as much talent as there is, there's a lot of competition on this team. And Kershaw, even at his age, with his stature, he still has to earn a spot. And I think that's going to burn some fire under him.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of seeing that with Walker Buehler too. He's made his return. He's mentioned much more open and candid Walker Buehler we've seen in his 3 starts since coming back from the IL. But he's mentioned, like, I've been that guy at the top of the rotation. Right now, I'm very clearly not that guy. But, he's saying, I want that to light a fire under my ass to push me back to the top. Real quick on that, on Buehler. What do you like from Buehler so far in his return? We saw a really nice start against the Reds over the weekend. You liking the progression of the returning Walker Buehler?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing during his minor league starts that I was very concerned with was the lack of command. No matter what level you're at, if you're walking guys and you're erratic on the mound, you can't get through innings, you're getting in multiple, 3-ball like counts. It's not going to translate at whatever level you're in, whether you're in the minor leagues or the major leagues. His command's been a lot better in these 3 starts so far. Obviously, it all came together in that start against the Reds, which I understand, the Reds, they're dealing with their own injuries. They're kind of reeling right now themselves, but still a big league team. And the most encouraging thing with Buehler is that I didn't know what his velocity was going to be, and I don't think he did. I'm very surprised that he's actually hitting 96 miles per hour with ease, because you look at other guys that have had multiple Tommy John surgeries, it never really goes in their favor. And I've mentioned before, the only guy I can think of is Nathan Eovaldi from the Rangers. He's the only one that I could think of that's came back from multiple Tommy John surgeries and has had success at the major league level after that. And Buehler, as long as he can locate with his off-speed pitches and his fastball can still get by some of these bats, I'm going to be confident with him. The only issue with his fastball, and I noticed it with, his start against the Padres and some of his pitches against the Reds, is while it is hitting 96, it looks really flat coming out of his hand. Kind of looks like a pitch that most major league hitters could just sit on and hit. And that's when he has to incorporate, his sinker, his cutter, his slider, and that knuckle curve looked really good against the Reds this past start. And that's a pitch that has been, one of his go-to out pitches. But if he can correct the fastball and, maybe have it with, whether it's with his grip or something, to get a little bit more rise like he had in 2020, then we're talking about maybe we're getting back to vintage Walker Buehler.
If we want a little more rise like 2020, we might need to find a few little sticky substances to throw on the back of that glove, but we're not going to accuse Walker of being a sticky stuff merchant.
Anything.
Nobody's saying anything. We're just saying words that happen to be not really making an accusation. But to touch on Kersh just for a second, and then Buehler. My thing is with Buehler, I still want to see 3-4 more starts before I really solidify an opinion of him right now. I think what we're seeing a guy that's as I talk Buehler now first, we're seeing a guy that is I think he, for so long in this ramp up and this return from the second surgery, there's been a lot of like, oh well, if this doesn't happen or if this, I think just setting a lot of those doubts and setting a lot of like keeping the expectations so low that if it doesn't happen, don't worry, buddy, it's okay, we'll figure it out, we'll make you a pitcher. I think it just, it's not like it made him weak or anything like that. I think it just set up a kind of slow restart for him, in my opinion. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but we heard a lot about it. Even when he was trying to come back last September, it was sort of like, oh, the velo wasn't there, the command wasn't there. Then the elbow was kind of barking on him in spring training. Dave was critical, a lot more critical than you ever hear Dave Roberts when it comes to his own players. He was talking about needing the command. If you want to be a big league pitcher, we need to see something better out of him. And now it's more like Buehler talking about I don't know that I can do things that I was able to do before. So like, don't worry about that guy, build a new guy and whatever. I don't know. Again, it's sort of incoherent or incomplete thought on it. But I think there's too much input going into Walker. Just go out there, let it eat, see what happens. And if it tears, you had a good run, you have a ring. I doubt it's going to tear again on him. And with Kershaw, he talked about that when he came to Camelback Ranch. I think his first appearance at spring training. He's like, there's a lot of talent on this team. And if I'm not one of those 4 guys or 5 guys or 6 guys, like I need to find a way to be one of those guys. And if not, like I gave it my best sort of situation. And I think he's somebody I do worry about if he's not at his best. They still find a way to put him on that pitching staff in October, whether it is warranted or not. And I really, I hope it's a non-question. It's like not even something we worry about. Hopefully Kershaw is just good. He's just as good as usual or even better because the shoulder's back together in one piece and he can go out there and be better than, James Paxton, be better than Bobby Miller, be maybe better than Walker Buehler and earn that, we'll call it final spot in the postseason rotation. Let's talk though. I think that was one of the things that sort of spurred our kind of conversation on this or our thought process on this. It's like, hey, the questions are going to get really hard when it comes to the month of October. In your opinion, what is, all things go well, everybody's healthy, everybody's at their best, what is the optimal rotation for this team in the playoffs? Assuming starting 4.
Yeah, I think if everything goes well, I'll even say it like this. I think in the starting pitching market, there's really not many options there. I think what you're seeing right now internally on the roster is what you're going to be seeing in October. Whether some of those players are traded away, like I mentioned earlier, that's up to how the next couple months go. But in terms of, October starters, the Dodgers have 2 really good arms that they can go off of right off the bat. Tyler Glasnow is just a guy that just looks like he is built for October. He hasn't had the best track record so far in his postseason starts, but we're getting vintage prime years of Tyler Glasnow, the healthiest he's ever been.
Thank you.
And he just looks pretty much, his pitches, his off-speed looks absolutely filthy, and he's very dominant. He can command his presence on the mound. His 6 foot, like almost 7 foot frame looks intimidating on the mound, and it's definitely something the Dodgers have missed the past couple seasons, and I think they need a high velocity guy to get past some of these bats in October. And Glasnow leading the charge. He started the Korea series, he started the domestic opening day. I imagine at the end of the season, he was my Cy Young Award winner pick. I think he'll be leading the charge come October. And Yamamoto is definitely the clear cut, number 2 starter. I feel like each start he continues to get better and better each time. He learns how to navigate through these American MLB teams. I think those 2 are locks right now. Mm-hmm. In terms of 3rd starter, I really think it just depends on how, it goes for the rest of the season. If Bobby Miller can, have a healthy rest of the season and the shoulder isn't a lingering thing, and he can kind of go back to that first start of the season where, he had 6 shutout innings against the Cardinals, I think he should be a lock as the 3rd starter just due to the pure stuff that he has in his arsenal. I think the thing that separates teams that have been succeeding in recent years has just been to the high impact arms that they have in their starting rotation that can just blow it by guys. Because for whatever reason, It's not just the Dodgers, it's other teams as well, where it seems like a lot of people are trying to, it's October, the lights are flat, the brightest. A lot of people are trying to play hero ball. And I feel like if you have a power pitcher against a power hitter, I feel like the power pitcher is going to win almost every single time. After that, I think Gavin Stone, if he continues to go off the way he's been doing, you got to give him a shot in that rotation as well. I think he would be wasted in the bullpen. I feel like he is a guy that's been going 6-7 innings regularly right now. If he can keep that up for the rest of the year, he should be a shoo-in. And then in terms of, it really depends on if they keep James Paxton, and it really depends on how Kershaw is. And I think they still need a lefty to kind of break up those arms. And that could really set up how they set it up throughout the series, because maybe you want two righties and then a lefty, then you're going to start Kershaw or Paxton a little bit early. If I had to, predict the future right now, I imagine Kershaw is on that rotation. I think he will come back, pretty decently once he is activated later in this summer. But even if he's not off to the brightest start, I think they're going to want to impact lefty to break up some of these arms. But they really only need 3 or 4 pitchers.
Yeah.
And then in the bullpen, you can start throwing some starters in there. Walker Buehler is definitely an option for the rotation as well. But I still say I don't think he's a lock, just because, he's only had 3 starts so far. We don't know what the next 2 or 3 months is going to look like.
We're playing like the way down the road game for sure right now. We know at least also 2 or 3 of these starters are going to end up in the bullpen if they're, not like you're saying, potentially traded. Hey, I wonder if there's a world where Walker Buehler is traded. I very much doubt it, but anything feels possible these days. This is a team that desperately wants to go out there and win a championship. Before we get into bullpen stuff, I obviously fully agree. Glasnow, Yamamoto, those are your clear-cut aces. To me, right now, Gavin Stone has earned that 3rd spot just because he's been the most consistent. He's been essentially a savior for this starting rotation for this entire team, because without him, they would be in a world of hurt. Well, maybe not hurt. Hurt is hurt. Kyle Hurt is hurt, but they would be in a tough spot if not for what Gavin Stone is doing. And then, hey, you know what? It's the next guy up. You've been healthy all season long. Maybe Paxton needs to be in there. I think he would be one of those guys to be traded. But we also know what Walker Buehler does in October. It's tough, but that's kind of, I said Paxton. I'm throwing that away. I think Bobby Miller's stuff plays up really nice in the bullpen as a long guy. Kershaw, it feels like sort of a redundancy at this point. If it's not Paxton, it'll be Kersh, and if Kersh is in some sort of long relief role. Anyways, I got Yama, I got Glasnow. Well, I got Glasnow, Yama, I got Stone, and I got Walker Buehler. It's a lot of righties in there, but at some point their job should be, if you do well, you should earn an opportunity. And those guys, depending on what we see out of Walker the next few years, those guys, or a few months, I should say, those guys have earned it. In my opinion, at right now, it's the end of ish, little halfway past mid-May. Luckily, we don't have to make these decisions for a good little while longer. But bullpen, what do you think a bullpen looks like for this team?
I think bullpen would be, I know it's uncharacteristic of Andrew Friedman to do, is trade for some bullpen arms, but maybe that's a route that he takes depending on how some of these arms, we before today, Gratterall, I thought he was MIA. I didn't know anything about him. When I asked about it in DC, that's when we heard the worst news. We're like, oh, he's not even picking up a baseball right now. That's where I threw doubt into that. I'm like, all right, well, if he doesn't come back, this is a guy that can get both lefties and righties out. May not be able to blow it by you for whatever reason with a 98 mile per hour, fastball, but he can still get the job done both ways. In terms of just how the trade market looks, it's going to be hard to, pinpoint who's available and when they're available, just because we've had back-to-back seasons of 80-ish win teams go to the World Series out of the National League. Right now, everybody still thinks they have a shot, especially if they're hovering around that 500 mark, which, lack of a better term, I don't think that's good for baseball. But that's a conversation for another day. But I think you're going to see Evan Phillips, obviously, in the closing role. it really gets interesting. You're going to see the same guys. Joe Kelly, if he's healthy, he's there. Ryan Brazier, if he's healthy, he's there. Evan Phillips, like I mentioned, if he's ready, he's in there. But if Kyle Hurt can come back, we saw how electric this guy can be.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can go multiple innings. That's a guy I would definitely want in the bullpen. And then if the starting rotation's getting a little bit of a roster crunch, we all know some of those guys are going to go into the bullpen and eat some innings. You mentioned Bobby Miller. He does make sense as a long inning relief guy. I would like a 101 mile per hour throwing guy to come out of the bullpen and get some outs in an electric spot. I think the biggest question mark, if he can come back and is healthy, is Dustin May. This dude, and I will continue to say it, has the nastiest stuff I've seen from a pitcher and watching, in my 20 years of watching. This guy has just freakishly curve, freakishly spin, and he has freakish velocity. But he's also one of those pitchers that's coming back from multiple, arm and elbow surgeries. And, he looks good in his bullpens right now. He said he expects to come back in September. And if he can get enough, I don't think he's going to be in a starting role, because I don't think he's going to have enough time to get built up to that. But if they can get him in, at the end of that, in that bullpen, and to get like 1 or 2 innings with him, that's a big thing as well. And we haven't even mentioned Blake Trinan, who's spotting a 0 on the ERA so far this year and has looked electric.
Absolutely disgusting on the mound. It has been fun to watch him.
But I would say that's your bullpen right there. And if they can swing a trade for some of these other teams that may fall out of contention, maybe they want to, the Astros are falling apart right now. They have multiple closers on their team. Maybe they want to trade, Presley, and if that's an option, maybe that's what the Dodgers look. I know the Astros are the hated ones, but they have a lot of good players that are on their team right now that I would be looking at if I was.
I know it might leave a sour taste. The last time the Dodgers traded with the Astros for a reliever, they lost Yordan Alvarez. So maybe let's avoid the Astros as much as we can. The through line of all of this conversation, gang, is there's a lot of good problems for this Dodgers team to have. Hopefully, knock on desk here, everybody stays healthy. Everybody keeps getting healthier. We don't have to go out and see, an Eliezer Hernandez pitching in a ball game and Anthony Banda in a game, them going and claiming a Johan Ramirez, even though we know how much Andrew Friedman loves and going getting those guys and finding those diamonds in the rough. But ideally, you have your Phillips, you have your Joe Kelly, you have your Trinan. Hey, you know what? Alex Vesia is shutting up a lot of critics this damn season so far. Daniel Hudson, another guy, back from he did the damn Undertaker meme right here, coming back from the dead to be. I mean, he's kind of the de facto closer right now with Phillips on the sideline. Yarbrough, another one of those guys. I think he could be traded, but he's also been an unsung hero for this team. And the same way you mentioned, like Bobby Miller in a sort of long relief role, throwing 100 from the right side. You got the left side throwing, gassing 89 up there and making hitters still look foolish. Bruce Dark Ratterall, where are you at? Come back. We miss you, Bazooka. Kyle Hurt, Dustin May. What is that going to look like? A lot of talent for this team, and it's a good time to be a Dodgers fan when you finally see them fix a problem that has been a problem more often than not over the last 12 years of dominance. It has been this issue. It has been the bullpen. So any final thoughts before we sign off on this one, my guy?
No, I think the Dodgers are in a good spot. I've mentioned it, a lot over these past couple weeks, and I just still don't think the Dodgers are playing their best baseball right now. I still think once they get, everybody clicking at the same time, look out. I jokingly say they're about to go in autopilot mode, which is where over the summer they're going to streak an 80-20 record out of nowhere on their route to 110 plus wins potentially. But it's a great time to be a Dodgers fan. There's a lot of top heavy teams in the National League right now. So the Dodgers, if they really wanted to kind of just mellow their way to the finish line and then be fully ready come October, they could do that as well. But I think this team's going to want to set some records. So I'm really excited for it.
Looking forward to doing this. Looking forward to talking to you more throughout the season. Tell the fine folks what you do and where to find you if they don't already know.
Yeah, if they don't already know, we have a lot of listeners that go, Dodger fans love to listen to all their podcasts and read everything. So anything Dodgers or baseball related. So they may already be familiar with my work, but obviously you can find me on all my written work on DodgersBeat.com. writing stuff there every single day pretty much, especially with all the updates that the team's bringing out right now. It's going to be a busy couple weeks with there. And then the Bleed Lows podcast, me and my amigos over there, we're having fun in the carne asada, and we're getting ready to do multiple lives a week. We're doing multiple episodes. We're doing weekly recaps and everything as well. And then personally on social media, the only one I really use is just Twitter. So Snavely Cody 6. That's where you can find me. I'm very interactive with everybody that wants to talk. You have a question, I'll shoot my opinion on it. So yep. And thanks again, Clint, for having me on. It's always good to talk some shop.
Yeah, guys, give him a follow. He is one of my favorite follows on the Twitter. Needs more follows. Definitely deserves them. He puts in a lot of good work there. Puts in a lot of good work all around on the internet. But definitely check him out on the internet. And you guys will see him again here on the channel, hopefully sometime soon. Thanks again for the time, man. And once again, I thank Cody for joining the show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It was a lot of conversation, a lot of setup, and it's a nuance. It's not even nuance. It's you're talking about topics that are a lot of prognostication, a lot of rosterbation, a lot of hypotheticals we don't know, but you still got to look down the line, look down the road. There's a lot of things that could go right, could go wrong for this team in between now and October. We're hoping for the right. But I do want to know what you guys think about the situation. Let me know how you feel, how you hope this Dodgers pitching staff will shake out. Do you have any worries about guys like Brusdar Graterol? Do you have any worries about a guy like Clayton Kershaw? If Kersh comes back and he's healthy, does he fit into this starting rotation? Are you mad at me for saying Gavin Stone is my number 3 starter right now just because he's kind of earned it? Sound off. I want all of your thoughts on this pitching situation. I am again Real FRG on the social media machines. Give me a follow. If you are looking to add to your Twitter pile or whatever it may be, we have different ways to support the channel. One would be hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you want to be alerted whenever we happen to go live, whenever I happen to go live, mostly on Mondays and Thursdays. I, of course, co-host another show, Dodgers Territory with Alana Rizzo on the Foul Territory Network. Check that out. That's a cool way to support. And one final way you could support is checking us out on Patreon, patreon.com/realfrg. There's a couple of little perks in there. You're supporting independent Dodgers coverage, independent baseball coverage for less than the price of a Dodger dog this season. You can help support, and you might get a few things, join a little community, have some fun. Completely up to you if you would like to join. All Dodgers podcast is, I should know my own show here. All Dodgers podcast is presented by BetOnline. Again, use that promo code BELIEVE to get 50% bonus on your first deposit. And I will see you on the next one of these.